Hey guys, what's up and welcome to another episode of The Goodcast Show. So today I have a fellow podcaster on and it's going to be a fun conversation. I've been following his content for a long time. He's interviewed some amazing guests. He's had people like Khairi Jamaluddin, my favorite episode, which was with Munira Alathas, and then he's also interviewed Tun Mahathir and a host of other amazing politicians. So his content style is more political commentary. He's, I think, one of the first few citizens who became podcasters and political commentators out there. In a world, and he shares content that while he analyzes things, he also adds his touch of humor, sarcasm. So if you guys like commentary of politics that has a bit of satire in it, this guy is the man for you. I'll be sharing the links of his YouTube channel. Please check it out. It's amazing guy. I love his content, his individual videos as well as interviews. He's an entrepreneur. He's an educator. But today we'll be talking about politics. So he's a political commentator, podcaster, so many hats. Please welcome Mr. Victor Tan. How are you, Victor?
Thank you so much. You are overselling me. I feel like, wow.
So much stress.
that is overselling. That is like basically, oh my gosh, like you're going to inflate my my existence to the high heavens at this point right here, whichever heaven it is that you happen to believe in. But
Yes.
Thank you, Vinod, for having me on this show. It's an honor to be here with you, viewers of the Goodcast Show. As Vinod mentioned, I run a podcast. It's called Pathways to Excellence, but also talk about politics and a range of other things. I think that, even though you might find my channel interesting to look at, or you might find it valuable in some way, I want to take this opportunity actually to encourage every single one of you. Do not let fear gatekeep you. In the sense that, a lot of people, they think that these kinds of things are things that we should not talk about, but there are lots of great people out there, like for example Siti Kasim, Professor Tajuddin, and other people who have more of a fledgling interest like myself. And of course you have Vinod here, the star of the show.
I hope so. Let's see.
You are definitely the star of the show.
Let's see how this goes. Look, I wanted to talk about politics. I mean, instead of going into your podcasting journey, I think we all know that you're a podcaster and you're a content creator, so that's all done. But I just want to get your views on certain topics happening now, right, in Malaysia. I mean, there are a lot of things to discuss actually.
For sure.
But we'll start off with, what's your view on the current political landscape in Malaysia? How do you sum it up?
Let me think about that for a quick bit.
You can edit this part out. No worry.
No, you don't have to edit this part. I think that people should take more time to.
And your sponsor today is
Chaotic. Your sponsor is not chaotic.
But when you think it's chaotic.
I think it's chaotic. Now, the thing about chaotic is that it's one of those words that doesn't have an intrinsic connotation. Let me ask you a question right here. That boy is handsome. Good connotation, bad connotation, or neutral?
Good, I guess.
Okay. That girl is beautiful. Good, bad, neutral. Good. Okay. She is ugly.
Bad.
Okay. Chaotic. What does that tell you? Is that good? Is
I
that
guess
bad
from the perspective of Malaysian politics, I would say it's the right, the right definition.
I say chaotic because I think it really sums up everything that we see nowadays.
Yeah.
You see, of course, major coalitions currently undergoing, right, times of renewal and also change. PKR right now, as we speak, is having elections. Two heavyweights, Nurul Izzah and Rafizi Ramli, are going to be contending at the moment. We, of course, have heard YB Rafizi mention that people should vote for Nurul Izzah. Why would you vote for me? That kind of thing. And that sets off all sorts of speculations here. At the same time, I believe that PM's political secretary, Kamil Munim, has just won PKR Youth a spot right there. I congratulated him. He said, thanks, bro. You're welcome, bro. And when you see actually that sort of renewal and that sort of change right there, I think that it's interesting. Now, is it good, bad, or neutral? Well, some might say that if you look at the other end of the spectrum, like at the other side of the river, there we have Perikatan Nasional, which of course is our, coalition of opposition parties, respected opponents, and of course fellow citizens of Malaysia. Now, it's interesting actually because Perikatan really calls to mind something historical, which is the alliance from back before UMNO came into...
During the time of Gerakkan, when Gerakkan was the
Absolutely.
third party it was.
Absolutely. And I say it's chaotic because when you look at the current situation, you have, I think, a coalition in change. Bersatu has, well, lots of internal strife at the moment. Then you have, of course, PAS going about and doing its day-to-day thing. Of course, recently, there have been some interesting changes. And I'm actually not going to talk about a bad thing right here. Like, if you want to...
Really, Victor? You?
If you're going to
be positive about politics?
If you're going to talk... If you're going to, like, just talk about, like, bad things all the time, I think that makes it kind of
doesn't make
boring
sense. Yeah,
for the
you gotta be
kind of thing.
balanced. Yeah,
and actually, here I'm going to mention actually a speech that Tan Sri Hadiawang mentioned in Parliament. So like, I think that's the famous speech where he talked about the Satu Tiga Ekor Je type thing right there.
Okay.
But what a lot of people don't know necessarily is that before he actually made that speech, he was talking about how, it's a multicultural, diverse country. We cannot force people to do certain things if they don't actually want to. So then that is that sort of change. Haji Rasman Zakaria was removed from his position. He was publicly sanctioned. You can see actually that on his own Facebook page, right? There were people from within the coalition who were actually criticizing Haji Rasman as well. And when I look also at other things, like for example, the lawsuit of Siti Mastura and various other things out there, well, it's very interesting because, well, you can sort of see, right, that there's this sort of inner awareness, right? And the reminder that comes once in a while that actually these people are not necessarily our enemies just because we happen to lie on another side of the political metaphorical river, but instead they are truly our countrymen. Divided as we may be, united we can be stronger, but sometimes we walk on different pathways. Secularism and Islamism may not be compatible, but somehow I think about what Lee Kuan Yew said from third world to first when he talked about different elements in society kind of moving around in like the combination of yin and yang, coexistence and not necessarily destruction. Now, the last thing I want to kind of conclude with in this assessment so far is about UMNO. And here, actually, like, I want to bring two separate things together, particularly, I mentioned earlier Perikatan, and I also mentioned UMNO.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting things that I saw in the past couple of weeks, actually, I don't know if you saw this, was when Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin mentioned in a speech to, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like a speech to the Indian community. I think it was like some sort of unity event. He said that he was no longer Malay first, but instead, he was Malaysian first.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I was completely shocked. Like, what? It went against every single thing that I believed in. And I wondered to myself, I don't know what the grassroots were actually thinking at that point in time. Like, it was just mind-blowing.
No, but I think that speech that you're referring to, one thing about the Perikatan Nasional, and in fact, even both sides of the aisle, is that their statements are never coherent with what they have done in the past. I think Malaysia suffers from the fact that unlike the BN time, the 60-year BN reign that we had, one thing they did that these guys don't do is that they were consistent. You could argue that they are consistent because they had time and they had stability, right? So when you have that, you can enact policies, you can have beliefs that can stand the test of time. But today, like you mentioned Hadiawang's example, I can give you another example of how he talked about in Air Kuning, where he said that, God does not want non-Malays to rule over Malays. And then you see people like Tan Sri Muhyiddin, when years before he said in an interview, I am Malay first. And then now he's saying, no, he's Malaysia. And you could make the connection that the only reason why he's saying it is because I guess Perikatan have sensed that their ultra-Malay rhetoric or them pandering to the Malays isn't really working. I mean, if Air Kuning is any sort of benchmark or any sort of barometer of the support, they lost to PSM in 3 polling stations in a constituency where 60% are Malays. So that is why for me it irritates me. Like I agree what you say that we need to coexist, and of course we all want that. We want a peaceful, prosperous nation. But what I want from the opposition is, and I'm doing this as a voter because I'm neutral, right? Ideally, I want a strong government and I want a strong opposition because that's going to benefit me.
Absolutely.
Right? But the opposition now are so weak in their stance that it does not inspire confidence in me. Even if I can say, oh yeah, you know what, Hadi Awang says some of the things he says because he's pandering to the Malays. It's just racial politics, right? That may not be reflected in his ideologies or the way he truly thinks or the policies he may enact in government. But it's hard to put your finger on what exactly is Perikatan Nasional.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
A lot of times they come out with rhetoric, and then, the actions that they take just happen to not really match. But at the same time, right, I think one of the things that I've learned growing up, right, is the complexity of the world and also human decisions and emotions. I think that it is very easy to judge, right? And it is, in fact, very easy to judge people wrongly sometimes. In fact, like if you were to judge people correctly, like I think that would be something actually hard to do in some cases. Now, I would lean with you in saying that, like, I think that what the opposition is doing at the moment is not actually something that most people should believe wholesale. I don't see a lot of like discussion about how actually we can develop really this country to the next level. I don't see contributions really to the policy discussions. If you consider, for example, DAP, then some people might go on and say, oh, these are the traitors. And in fact, right, like I don't know if you know this, but Fahmi Reza has this cartoon right there where he basically does an imitation of like a Minda president pass right there, where it basically just says DAP, 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 DAP.
Okay.
I don't know if like you can put that up later on. I think it'll be interesting for your audience to see. But it's almost as if they've made a career really of like coming out to oppose for the sake of opposition. It's not like what you have with your Workers' Party, for example, in Singapore, and I follow Singapore politics quite a fair bit, more to say about that as well a little later. But when you think of an enlightened opposition, you would think about things that are better than, like, for example, well, okay, the Ladang Babi thing, I don't necessarily want to say because, like, that could be a valid thing. Or, like, if you're going to be talking about just constantly, how are we going to, for example, protect this and this particular group? Like, where is the sort of forward vision that we expect of you? And here, actually, I do want to talk a little bit about, UMNO, which is what I was intent on talking about a little earlier on as well. Now, I accept that there was a social contract. Now, that social contract was founded essentially between our forefathers in the negotiation for independence. You essentially get citizenship as, for example, someone who is of Chinese descent or Indian descent. But in exchange, you accept the special rights of the Malays. Now, as somebody who has lived in this country for a long time, right, I have come over the years, right, to understand that a little bit more, but I find I also understand it a little bit less. When you hear people talk about, like, say, what special rights should be or what they should entail, there's never really a sort of clear idea right there. And that's true whether you look at statements from Dr. Akmal Saleh, who I, by the way, invited to my own podcast before and continue to invite even now. But so if you think about it, right, I am not against, right, special rights. In fact, I think that they should be encouraged. The thing is, right, now, whether you slice things along ethno-religious lines or you look at things from a different sort of perspective right there, I would think that, well, if special rights should exist, then they should elevate people. Of course, as I think like the Malays are 70% of our country now, 70...
So 60 plus, 60
plus,
yeah.
As 60 plus percent of our country, of course we would want you to be happy. We want you to achieve your goals, your dreams, your ambitions. But if your goals, your dreams, your ambitions are narrow to the point that you are constantly thinking that there are enemies within, imaginary in nature, going around flitting in the shadows to go out and oppose you, you post in Facebook groups false histories. I saw a false history, by the way, of May 13. Yesterday, by the way, was May 13 of 2025, bringing to mind the dreadful massacres, essentially, that up until now, the best source that we have to understand is essentially Dr. Kwa Kia Song's May 13 declassified documents from the May 1969 riots. That part of our history is little examined, little talked about, and I find that as a society, right, we should move towards a more holistic understanding, really, of what it means to actually empower our entire society. Now, does it mean a particular scholarship? Does it mean that a particular grievance needs to be solved or otherwise? Well, if we live in a society where a lot of these things cannot even be talked about, I find that it is a difficult proposition to really deliver on. But of course, I wish well for the Malay community and for all the communities of this country. We are here, and hopefully we will be here for the long haul.
No, but interesting on that point, because there is this. I agree with you. I think all of us now, at this point in time in 2025, we have, as a society, accepted the social contract. Although there is no such thing. It's an intangible document, if you will, right? This was also highlighted by a previous guest I had, Dato' Jo Samad from Sabah, who pointed out that there is no such thing as a social contract, although the rights are preserved in some of the abstractly in the constitution. But we are all fine with what's the way society is built now. We're fine. But I think and honestly, for me, as an Indian living in Malaysia, as a Malaysian Indian, I don't really see a need for special privilege for my people, because studies have shown historically, if you look at the African American community right after slavery, right, they were actually they were performing far better in many sectors as compared to the whites, even though they did not have any privilege. So it's that sort of thing that when you don't have privilege, you work harder and you perform better, right? So I'm fair with that. And I think Indians have done a very good job in Malaysia. Chinese as well, definitely. I think the Chinese and Indians are ranked number 1 and 2 in terms of average household income in Malaysia, with the Malays are the third. So we have done well in spite of it all, right? But I do get where I come from is the annoyance that I have is that, and it is a very annoying thing, it's like a stone in your shoe, where the remarks that are passed out in public, the disparities in terms of enforcing the 3 R's, for example,
for sure,
right? When it comes to people who are Muslim, who, especially people like Zamri Vinod, Firdaus Wong, and all these people, even people like Dr. Maza, who say things that are very ignorant and very insensitive and should not be said today. That is my grievance, I feel. And even like back to your point about how PN, does not get involved in politics. Sometimes they just need to be in opposition for the sake of it. In fact, in a recent sitting in Parliament, when they were discussing the tariffs, right, you can see Dato' Sri Hamzah, who is the head of the opposition, coming up with very good points. So they do have that economic knowledge, of course, right? And but however, as the whole seating went along, then you hear people standing up and voicing out the fact that, where is Rafizi? He's on holiday. Where is the Mantri Miti? They at a time when tariffs are something that are so important and such a problem, potentially such a big problem for us, they are talking about, the negatives, which I find that, and the problem with PN is that they do not do justice to themselves, because if you were to compare PH and PN in terms of experience, PN wins. They have had ministerial candidates for longer. They have had had parliament speakers for longer, prime minister candidates and all that. Whereas PH is still new. They're still in quote unquote inexperienced. They're still green. A lot of their members, right?
Of course.
So I think Perikatan needs to take a good look at itself and realize that, look, you cannot win just by the Malay votes. We should do better because we can do better. And they have more experience in terms of policy making and all that. I mean, they were the government when we were, during COVID and all that. So I feel that's the problem. Now, I want to jump into another topic as well, which is, of course, you covered it on your channel. I've always felt that in democracy, the people are the stakeholders in democracy that oftentimes get away with the least responsibility or the least consequences for their actions. Voters feel that democracy only happens one day in every 5 years.
Oh yeah, for
I'm talking in our context, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
do you like for me personally, I feel that democracy is a continuous effort. Like it's a continue, and I think that we as a society tend to outsource the check and balancing to the opposition, which doesn't make sense to me because all of them are cut from the same cloth.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So their incentive is not necessarily change, but their incentive is to perhaps shake the system for their own benefit, but at the end of the day, maintain the status quo. They don't like they don't want to see, say, for example, PSM come into power and then convert us to a socialist country. I mean, I don't think PSM would do that. I know them. I don't think they'll do that. But you get what I mean. What do you think we as voters are not doing to ensure that our democracy is evolving in a positive direction?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to start by challenging Siti Kasim for a bit. Now, I watched Siti Kasim's podcast quite a fair bit, and you do a great job. I think I saw you once when I was interning at Malaysia Kini and eating overpriced Indian food at 300 ringgit per month salary at that time.
Where were you eating this Indian food?
Near Bangsar. Like I remember very distinctly.
Is it Nirvana?
I don't know what the name. Okay. And to be fair, right? Like in this case, like you actually can't blame me for like having a bad memory. The reason I say that is the entire thing, like the entire restaurant, it was like a restaurant with a like Tamil signboard. And then I remember very distinctly, you walk in to the yellow colored walls, and then there, like you end up seeing a picture of like Ganesha, like the literal portrait right there, beyond like the little beaded like opening right there. And it seems like an entire universe, you know, like red carpet, yellow walls, portraits, Krishna, Ganesha, and like basically, you know, once you move past that thing right there, I know that Ganesha is the remover of all obstacles, but in this place, you are the Ganesha himself. So, you know, like you end up sitting down, the waiter comes to you, he doesn't speak a single fucking word. Is this on the first floor or something? Yes.
I know the place.
Oh, you know the place?
I know the place. Yeah, I know the place. Yeah. Because when you said beaded, and I said, wait a minute, there's only one place I know in Bangsar that does that. It's a first floor thing, right? It's not ground floor.
Actually, no, it's ground floor. Sorry. Like,
ground floor?
When you said first floor, I was like thinking like, oh, American standards.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
No, but I remember very distinctly. I walked in, and then like he just comes up to me, and then like he gives me a menu. Every single thing is in Tamil. I couldn't read Tamil at that time, bro. Like, I didn't go to a SJKT. I didn't like learn the script or anything like that. Maybe I should. I mean, like you know, like I was just like looking at that. And then like staring. Then the guy is like staring at me. Then it's like, yeah, I'm just like looking here, point. Then he's like, aloo. Then
aloo gobi.
Yeah. yeah.
Okay. Anyway, back to Siti Kasim, man. Siti Kasim. You're going on a tangent here.
I'm sorry. Siti Kasim maintains that it's the politicians that are the problem. That is something that she says, right? Like I'm a fan of what she talks about right there, but I want to not necessarily directly like let's break through the walls of the universe and like tell Siti Kasim to come over here and have me in a public debate. No. I'm just saying that if you're just saying that the politicians are the only people that you should hold to account, then in that case, you're forgetting like who you should be holding to account most. Just look right over here.
This is like a Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson.
Man in the Mirror.
Yeah.
That's right. I feel that in Malaysian society, we don't have a very strong civil society precisely because a lot of people, right, like they have this feeling that somebody else will do it for them. You choose the right person, you decide on the right individual, then boom, miracles will happen. Where is the most prominent and immediate failure of this? Sorry to say this, Prime Minister, but the election of Anwar Ibrahim.
Really?
When you say that, like, you want a hero to save your society, you want, like, every miracle to come about right there. I'm not saying, by the way, that PMX, you've done a bad job. It is a job that we can criticize, we can look at in, like, perspective, compare across, like, the different generations. What tier does this particular individual belong in? A, B, C, D, E, F, or S? Rahman prophecy came to an end after you had Tunku Abdul Rahman, Razak, Hussein On, Mahathir, then Abdullah Badawi, who recently passed away, and you have Najib right there. Now, then you have basically Anwar come into power. People thought of him as basically the change, leader of the opposition for so many years, involved in so many different projects, taught at like Oxford, Georgetown, and also, if I'm not wrong, Johns Hopkins, where his daughter later went to study. I know that you mentioned the nepotism thing a little bit earlier on. I'll come back to that a little bit later on. So if I forget, then do remind me
of
as
course,
well.
No worries.
So people think that he's going to be the single master key that's going to unlock the walls of a civilization. Like, congratulations came in from around the world, like, to think that somehow or another there was going to be a natural uplift in the population. Somehow or another we would all be saved. Heaven would come down. And for example, the Imam Mahdi, if you're a Muslim, Jesus in Second Coming would come down and like save the entire world. I don't know what the Hindu equivalent is that. Sorry?
Kalki.
Okay, yeah. Kalki would come down or something of that nature.
But Kalki won't save the world. He will destroy it. It'll be the end of times. Yeah, so a bit darker for us though. No saving us. You're all screwed.
Yeah, but like really, back to your point earlier. So we do have to have like certain types of civic responsibility. You can't expect like every single person to like speak up for you. You can't expect Vinod to speak up for you at every single time. You can't expect Victor Tan to speak up for you every single time. Like the moment you start like putting all your eggs in the basket of somebody else and you begin to push your hopes over declaring somehow or another that they are the arbiters of what is true and noble to you. Somebody said in a comment recently on my channel, you convey, I can't remember exactly the wording right there. I apologize if it's completely wrong. But like, you convey reality and truth. Something of that nature right there. And, like sometimes, you will get like words of praise. I appreciate words of praise. But I want to throw it back to you and ask you a simple question. Why are you praising somebody else, really? Like, I mean, I appreciate the words of praise, but we also know from research that if you were to just praise a person, right, and they get like caught up into it, then they may end up, just like losing sight of like what they're doing in the first place. Yeah. I'm not saying that you shouldn't praise me.
Keep the praise coming.
Keep the praise coming, but please look for ways that you can become more praiseworthy yourself, right? Like, you admire somebody, don't just let it sit there. Become a more aware civic society participant. You have a brain inside you. You came to this channel for a reason. You came to meet Vinod at his little online space somewhere across the universe. I don't know, what is the audience member from the furthest off country that you've known of?
I think India.
India. Okay.
Yeah.
Jai Hind.
Australia, India. Yeah, I think so.
Or Pakistan, Zindabad, or like whatever it is right there. I mean, like, we're a neutral country, so like, whoa.
Yeah, I cannot believe you just said that. Oh my God, man. Victor, read the room, buddy. Read the room. No, but again, I mean, on that point about civic responsibility, right?
Sure, yeah.
I recently interviewed this guy called Arun Doraisamy on my podcast, and he's a social activist, but he focuses more on Indian issues, Hindu issues, and all that.
Sure.
And we had this back and forth because I take a problem with the consistent blaming of PMX. Okay, I take issue with it. And the reason why I take issue with it was because I was at an event recently where I interviewed Dato Sri Hamza, and then there was a Q&A session. And these students got up, right? And they were asking him about what would he do if he were in power, say maybe Prime Minister, whatever, or Deputy, to create funding for university programs at a association level. So the university association, right? So in particular, in this case, this guy got up and he was asking for funding for Kabaddi and Silambam, which are two Indian associated sports. Kabaddi being Silambam is a self-defense art, right? And so when I heard this, I was taken aback because I think these activists who are out there who consistently point the finger at PMX do not portray No, not you, but do not portray the exact image to the people.
Sure.
Because, like, for example, if you talk about racism, if you talk about this, it's not an Anwar problem, it's a legacy problem.
It is a legacy problem. I agree.
Right?
Absolutely.
And the change will only happen if people become more aware of the realities of politics.
Absolutely.
Like, for example, I remember after that event, I spoke to that boy and I was telling him, look, this should not go to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister handles macro issues, geopolitics, global trade, economic issues, the budget. These are very macro issues. You're talking about a very micro, isolated thing. And I mean, I just think people aren't aware enough that they forget that if they don't rise up or if they don't, protest certain things, change will never happen. Right? And then to after that blame the person that you put all your eggs in his basket, which a nice analogy by the way.
Thank you.
It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. But anyway, let's go back to the nepotism thing as well. So you haven't finished your thought on that.
Right.
So do you think that Nurul Izzah now potentially could become the deputy president, eventually take over the party? Is that a right thing for democracy?
Let me start off by saying that optics are inevitable whenever you have a situation like this. It plainly looks bad, right? The Prime Minister, now in power, his daughter comes in. And then the Minister of Economy states that, if you don't vote for her, then it's as if you're rejecting the Prime Minister. Now, that's kind of like a catch-22, devil and the deep blue sea type situation right there. But before we talk about Nurul Izzah for a quick bit, I'd like to take an example from Singapore. Now, and this is actually also something that I do want to mention on your podcast, right? You were mentioning earlier, like the divergence between the opposition and like what could be ideal right there. Singapore's Prime Minister, newly elected after a general election with 65.57% of the vote, 87 out of 97 seats in parliament right there, said during the election something that really stuck with me. At the end of the day, at the end of this election, it is not PAP against the opposition, it is Singapore against the world. I hope that we can have a situation where we have Malaysia against the world and not Malaysia against imaginary enemies in our midst. Now back to the nepotism thing. The third Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, whom I met, by the way, at Tun Abdullah Badawi's funeral just a few weeks ago, he is one of the classic accusees of nepotism. The optics are similar. You have the son of the Prime Minister taking up a position in the government of Singapore, later ascending into the position of Prime Minister. That aspect of optics, I think, is unavoidable. Like, people see that biological connection, they'll immediately think that, surely this must have been like what the design was. Itu adalah susur galur mereka, as Siti Mastura might say. I only say that because Siti Mastura said it. Queen Sepupu, thank you so much. Terima kasih banyak-banyak Kak Siti Mastura.
Sorry, just one thing about that part, about that initial Siti Mastura clip, right? The part that got me was not that she connected Lee Kuan Yew to Chin Peng, or that. But the part that annoyed me was when she gave a speech and she would always like get the crowd to complete her sentence, like say what you want to say, man. I came to hear you. What the hell are you doing? Like, I don't know what's your propaganda here. Like, I'm just the audience member. That was the part. Like, what was it? Chin Peng.
Yes.
That was the part that got me. But anyway, sorry, go back to your thing. Yeah.
I mean, like, but to be fair, like, maybe that's just like the way that they were educated. So I mean, like, I wouldn't discriminate against that, but like, I don't think it's a very effective method of learning. Lee Hsien Loong is, and I would say this like just no filter, probably, not even probably actually, no, without question, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, Senior Minister Lee Hsien Loong, is the most academically qualified world leader in the entirety of modern history.
Really? Why do you say so?
Look back 2,000 years, 3,000 years, and tell me, do you know of a prime minister of a country where the said prime minister became the top student in the entirety of Cambridge University in the math department, the senior wrangler in Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's memoirs from Third World to First, which I'm currently rereading. You may see that I'm kind of deep into that world.
Calm down, buddy.
He beat the next best student by over 20 marks. He went to the Harvard Kennedy School to study public policy, and then he was top student in the entire cohort. It's widely known. And otherwise, now of course, when it comes to say academic records and everything, you might think to yourself, well, that's something to be verified, and various other things of that nature. But the simple point is this: he did go to Cambridge, and he did go to Harvard later on. He did end up becoming a prime minister that ended up quadrupling Singapore's GDP in the time that he ended up taking office. Now, the shadow of nepotism will always hang over him just by dint of that biological connection right there. But it's one of many narratives. If I were to look another way, then I could say that, in the ideal of Singapore's meritocratic society, this man, ascended to the top. In Lee Kuan Yew's various interviews, he mentioned that Long could run faster than any other one of them. So now, of course, if you don't want to believe Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and you think that he's biased, that's entirely up to you. But back to Miss Nurul Izzah for a quick bit. Miss Nurul Izzah is a very talented woman. She did study at Johns Hopkins University, and she has been involved in a range of different policy positions. I think that the very first shadow of nepotism really came about when we saw essentially that she was appointed to a council. I can't remember exactly which council right there, but let's do this actually the way that would normally do it.
No, but just on that point, because you highlight the academic achievements of these people, right?
Of course, yes.
And of course, I mean, they are amazing. But do you think that is the right sort of yardstick to use to measure a great leader? Because in the, we've seen great leaders throughout history. Most of them did not have stellar academic requirements. People like Malcolm X, people like Martin Luther King. I mean, he was a doctor, but Martin Luther King,
theologian, I think. Yeah.
Sorry?
Martin Luther King was a pastor, theologian.
Yeah. So, but you don't. I mean, they may have academic experience, academic qualifications, but it's not that stellar. To me, I think the focus should be policy, should be performance when you are MP. In the case of Nurul Izzah, I don't necessarily have a problem with nepotism, because I think in Malaysia, nepotism is across the board. You had Dato' Jaafar, you had Dato' On, who founded UMNO, Tun Hussein On, who became Prime Minister. You have Hishamuddin, who is now in UMNO, although he's suspended, but he's still there. You have Mahathir, Mukhris Mahathir Moghzani. You have Lim Kit Siang, Lim Guan Eng, and his daughter as well. So it's all over the place, right? But the problem here I have is that, has her performance as MP, three-term MP, been enough to actually give us that confidence that yes, she can one day be the Prime Minister of this country, or or lead PKR? I don't think so.
Wonderful. Thank you for the question. Let's start by circling back a little bit to the Lee Hsien Loong response earlier. You made the very valid point that academic qualifications do not tell us that a person is qualified to run the country. Who are you? Some Harvard, Cambridge kid? Tell me how to run the country. Wow, Lim Pei Kali Kong, why?
This is the first podcast that has 3 languages in it. I love it. Keep it up, man. That's
awesome. Kali Kong, why Lim Pei si Genghis Khan?
Actually, Genghis Khan is good, right?
Yeah, I mean, a grand 2% of the entire population is related to Genghis Khan.
Yeah, exactly. Talk about that guy's spare time.
Yeah, but okay.
Even in China, there was a very good example of that empress who who was a concubine. But so I don't know. I just think that academic qualification is not a prerequisite.
Okay, but notice that I tend to be very careful with my words. If you rewind back that video, notice that I talk about Cambridge. Yes, it's true. I also talk about Harvard. Yes, that's true. But what else did I talk about? No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to be Siti Basura today. I said he quadrupled.
No, I get it. Right? Like in this case that you are talking about,
for sure.
I think this is a perfect example where a man has good academic achievements, which relates. Then he performs very well as Prime Minister. We accept that. We accept that.
Yeah, and I think, but like, is there a causal relationship between?
That's the thing. That's
so A, is there a causal relationship between having good academic credentials, and B, like, did Nurul Izzah's performance in Parliament justify us looking at her as a potential Prime Minister candidate or the future Prime Minister of Malaysia? Let's start with A. So, like, I could say, oh wow, this is gonna sound bad. I actually like assist students with going into universities, and actually like this might be something that you can mention. I'm partnering at the moment with a couple of like students from Harvard University. They're all my friends, and also there are students from Malaysia. Zachin, Gerald, Cheong, and also Brian Lim, undergraduates or were undergraduates of Harvard University, currently have this project that's called Lumen Bridge, which is going to be a camp for students who actually engage with Harvard students along the way. And if you're interested in that, then I'll send you a link, and then maybe you can put that in a little bit later on. Now, so the academic thing right there. We could say that universities, universities are scams.
Wow. Okay.
But not necessarily a scam in like the way that you expect. Teaching wise,
I like how you gave the example of Howard, and then right after that sentence saying universities are scams.
Hey, I mean, like, maybe Donald Trump thinks that that's the case right now, and you know, like, his Elise Stefanik is currently like trying to bring down her alma mater any way that she
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but like, seriously though, like, good university, great budget, everything, like, lots of great alumni. Mark Zuckerberg, please don't cancel me.
But it's a scam. Okay, go on.
Okay. All right. Now, what you say is there a causal connection between like the university academic performance of a person and, like, you know, how qualified they are to lead? Now, my response to that is, well, I mean, like, how do you know that a university made a person smart in the first place? Like, what if maybe they were smart from the very beginning, and then they end up somehow like just doing really, really, really well, and they would just like thrive in pretty much like any sort of system right there. Possible, right?
Possible.
I mean, entirely possible kind of thing. I mean, like, I give you the example of Gerald. In a few weeks, he's going to be graduating May 29th from Harvard University, perfect 4.0 GPA. I used to teach him for the SAT, like, time and time again, and like, I would basically like teach him like all these techniques kind of thing right there. He would come for class like basically like almost every single day. And like, he would meet me, and like, I would basically teach him like a range of different things. I saw his SAT score improve, like, I think it was like 2,300 like at some point right there. And like, but then how much of that came from me as a teacher, and how much of that actually came from him? In a similar way, if we look at like, say, Nurul Izzah, you know, like, how much of her, ability actually comes from her academic training? And is that actually, and I think this is the more interesting question that you're asking, is that really an indication that we should prefer over her performance as an MP? Which is what I think that you're saying. You're saying that her performance as an MP was not really satisfactory. Therefore, you might think to yourself, I have my questions about whether she can lead this country or not.
No, I think the point that I'm trying to get at is that of course, how we assess a potential prime ministerial candidate is by, to be fair, and this to be completely balanced in our argument here, that I think she is one of the people who, yes, you would consider as prime minister candidate.
Sure.
Her, maybe KJ is another option, right?
Oh, yeah.
On the PN side, I guess maybe Muhyiddin, simply because of the fact that he's been prime minister before, and he's the guy who's most likely going to do it, right? I mean, so it's, I mean, I would never want to see PAS being the prime minister again, because again, I don't know what is their political ideologies or what kind of Malaysia they want to bring about, right? And we judge these people by what they have done in the past.
Yep.
Most people have I wouldn't say a fear, but a bit of a aversion to PAS be having so much power is because of the news bites that come out when they speak. We don't necessarily focus on MB Sanusi saying that, when he took over Kedah, he immediately made five temples legal. He not legal, but he basically reserved those lands for them and all that kind of stuff. We don't listen to that. But in terms of Nurul Izzah, she's a bit special because her walk-in into politics, her preamble into being an MP, was that she was the princess of Reformasi. And I was a big fan. Big fan. I used to go for her talks and, see her. So we never really saw her as a daughter, but we saw her more as one of those candidates, the people who are the main characters in this Reformasi movie that we are watching now,
yeah.
right? But after she came into power as an MP, nothing much. It was like watching Star Wars Episode 9. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been watching Star Wars forever for this. Oh, it's like Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah,
that's the best. Like season 8 ending, and then wait, you guys had dragons, but you gave away dragons for democracy. I mean, what is this, right? So that is the thing, the disappointment with her, that she didn't enact things, she didn't push for things.
Okay,
people say she has great stances, but I don't see it. I just don't see it. So that is my concern. In fact, when I hear people talk about nepotism, like you talk about academic achievement, another person I like to bring the picture is Rafizi. Rafizi Ramli is known to be a very wise and knowledgeable guy, especially in terms of economics and all that, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But when you see him now tell publicly that if you don't vote for me, I will resign as Minister of Economy, what does that say? You are holding us at ransom because your party doesn't like you? I mean, come on, man. So that is my sort of bone I pick with these guys. Like, show me caliber. Show me that you can do it. I mean, don't just talk party politics. Who cares? Talk about the country. How are you going to deal with the tariffs? How are we going to bring Malaysia into, the next level? Okay, when he was Najib, he said he wanted to make it to a high-income economy. Okay, fine. What do you want to do? Those kind of things. I think that's why. Yeah, that's my concern.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So then maybe I would turn the question back on you then, for a bit, Vinod. What specific statements or like positions about Nurul Izzah do you see that disconfirm her as a Prime Minister candidate? What is the most definitive thing, or what are the most definitive things that make you think, no, this person cannot be my Prime Minister?
A complete lack thereof of her views on the future. If I would ask you as well, name me one of her biggest policies.
I would say that I don't know, but the thing is, that's because I haven't done enough research. So then,
but fair enough. But then, and I would say the same thing. But then you should have platforms like like I remember I've spoken to a few deputy ministers, former deputy ministers, and they come to this podcast and they talk about how they have done this, done that, and all this. And I say amazing. But I tell them, then why didn't you tell the people? Right? Because it is your mandate as a leader to tell us what you have done, to show us that you are championing what's right. So I think Nurul Izzah, what I would like from her is, instead of, instead of protesting the appointment of Azam Baki, right? Again, who cares? He's the head of SPRM now, right? Right? Who cares? Tell me what you want to do for the country. Tell me what you want to do for the people. That's what we want to hear. Azam Baki being appointed the new YDPA of who cares, man? Run the country, for heaven's sake. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay. I didn't think I was going to use this example, but this is
here we go, another one. Here we go.
Miss Nurul Izzah, you should come on Vinod's podcast.
Yes. Please, I've been inviting you forever. I've been asking you forever, man.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Nice. Like this is like fist bump.
There we go,
right,
man.
cool.
Thanks for that assist.
The reason I mentioned that in the first place is question. Do you like Donald Trump?
Yes, I do.
You do like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, interesting. Yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing about this world right now. A lot of people don't like Donald Trump.
Yes.
I don't think that's a very controversial point of view. I mean, but why do you like Donald Trump?
I do. Of course, his tariff thing is really a very scary thing. And it has even affected me. I wanted to set up a business recently that I've put on hold because I'm just waiting to see what the tariffs would do and all that. So it's really impacted me, which is annoying. But some of the things he says, I do agree. I do agree with the fact that why is America taking part in so many different countries and donating money everywhere when they have people who are living on the streets. They have a housing crisis. They have an economic crisis. So things like that, I do agree. I do agree with his stance on woke culture and all those kind of things, which I completely support. So I'm a person. I like leaders who are strong in what they say. I like leaders who do not always take the politically correct route. In fact, I hate these because I grew up liking people like, even people like Putin, people like Malcolm X, people like Tun Mahathir, Lee Kuan Yew. These are the leaders, very tough leaders.
Ooh, the authoritarian streak is coming out.
Yes.
Imagine Vinod as your Prime Minister.
Oh my God, I would love it. No more holidays. Get to work, man.
Imagine kicking Vinod out of office. Oh,
No.
All right, now the reason I mentioned this in the first place is, one of the reasons why I personally am not opposed to Donald Trump, and in fact like Donald Trump in some ways, is because I saw him on Joe Rogan's podcast for 3 hours. He just sat there and he just talk about a whole range of different topics. Wow, just the way that he was articulating things. For example, did you know, by the way, that wind is really, really bad? Yeah, those wind turbines, they rust all the time right there. You know they're really, really bad for whales?
They are?
Ask Donald Trump. Donald Trump, come on Vinod's podcast.
Yes! Another one! Fantastic. In fact, the one guy that I really want to get on my podcast, but I'm doing it online, is the new leader of Burkina Faso. But I'm saying the guy, Burkina Faso, that
Burkina
guy.
Faso, yeah.
Yeah. I love that guy. I like what his policies. I like it. Yeah. Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you're watching, come on, man. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, so and one of the reasons why also I wanted to interview Tun Mahathir, and I still do want to speak to leaders as well. So hey, maybe it can be a collaboration in the future.
Let's do it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. So reason why I think that this is a good suggestion at this point is that there's a distinction between different types of people. Some people are introverts, some people are extroverts. Some people are more expressive, some people are less expressive. Some people do have a mandate, yes, but maybe they are better at articulating what they did. Some people are not so good at it. Yeah. In the workplace, we see that perhaps people who know the social dynamics of things, they're able to better talk to, for example, certain people. You could say that is bad in the sense that these people are just buttering up people. Nepotism, what nepotism, baby, nepo baby ni.
Yeah.
So something like that. But if you were to look at it in the grand scheme of things, you could say this person is good at playing the game. But you never really know unless the person actually goes and speaks with you. Of course, if the person chooses not to speak with you, that also tells a sort of message. Maybe they are not prepared, they are unable to do so. Kamala Harris was invited to Joe Rogan's podcast, but then she insisted that he come over to her, which he basically doesn't do. I mean, he always has all of his guests fly down to Austin, Texas in order to meet him, and that's how it is, that's how it will be, and otherwise right there. But I would say that one of the reasons why it's hard for us to really judge people kind of thing is that we're always looking through this prism of multiple interconnected moving walls here and there. Even right now, you think about it, we're in the middle of a media cycle. The things that really about this world and about politics right now are all filtered through different types of media lenses and media biases right here. And actually this is something that I do want to kind of talk about right here, but I'll transition also. There is a very strong bias towards Pakistan in our national media right now. That's a fact. I'm not saying that Pakistan is necessarily evil. I'm not saying that they're necessarily good either. I'm just saying that it's an observable fact that the stories that you get on the Malaysian news media are biased towards Pakistan. You don't see other types of stories out there. Now, what does that do? That shapes reality for people in a certain way.
Yeah,
The
that's why those
stories that you
biases are.
see,
Yeah.
the podcasts that you watch, like including this one, I don't know how this podcast is going to shape reality, but like
None at all. There's five people watch this.
all right. Yeah. So like we don't know how certain things are going to end up shaping people. But like if we look at like say Nurul Izzah, like we say, for example, oh, she said this, oh, she did not say that. But like what happened in all the sort of like space out there beyond your 1 hour event? She has maybe, I don't know, like 23 hours to herself to allocate across like a range of different responsibilities. So I mean, like it's kind of like we are shooting in the dark right here. We are throwing darts at like what we think is like the absolute picture of reality kind of thing. In your case, I think that you've on the balance of things with the evaluation of the evidence converge more towards this idea that maybe she's not suited to be Prime Minister because she has not done certain things that you consider to be key.
No.
Or to be...
Just to correct that, I think that she is one of the suitable candidates for Prime Minister.
Right. Oh, you do think?
But I do think so because I think that she has. I think Prime Ministers also need to have a look about them, right? To inspire confidence in the voters. They need to have that a sense of charisma and all that. But where I feel that I'm still on the fence is that I don't know what she wants to do. Because I think that the clip that's coming to my mind now in Parliament, I've heard her talk about is that once she suggested that in Parliament people need to wear batik instead of suits. Which Kyrie got up and agreed with, and then that sort of sparked the entire funny episode which was quite funny actually. Thanks to YB Pasisala, who I love. He's the legend. By the way, big shout out to YB Hululangat, who is our generation's YB Pasisala, YB Kinabatangan. The guy is amazing. I love it. But yeah, so that's my thing. And my thing is that what do you want to do? That's all. That's my only thing.
Now I'm going to challenge you yet again. Wow, so many challenges today.
Yeah.
Now, okay, fine. So like you're not sure about what maybe like Nurul
What's her
Izzah,
policies? Yeah.
What her policies are.
Yeah.
But I can tell you for a fact, right? Like there's this Malay proverb that goes something like Bapak borek anak berintik. I learned that from Tun Dr. Mahathir in his book The Malay Dilemma, which I've read 5 times. Like father,
You've
like
read
child.
that thick book 5 times?
I read the Malay Dilemma 5 times. Yeah, I'm very interested in like the like social, cultural, religious, political life of the Malays. I'm interested in understanding from multiple perspectives. I read Facebook groups, I read news from Malay, English, and Chinese as well, and like just try to understand like things from multiple different perspectives. This kind of thing is like it's interesting to me. It's intrinsically interesting. But anyway, Bapak borek anak berintik. If I were to talk about, like, say, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, I know that, like, you are, well, somebody who doesn't want people to, like, blame a particular individual, the individual that they elected kind of thing. It's kind of like biting the hand that feeds you kind of thing right there.
No. Again, I have to correct that because I think it is important for us to blame him, to point fingers, because that's the way you keep him in check, right? You have to hold their feet to fire when you think they are wrong.
Sure. Okay.
But I think that when you criticize someone, you need to consider the whole problem. As opposed to just saying, for instance, say for example, you find an issue with, say, racism in Malaysia. You can't necessarily point the finger just to him. This is a legacy problem, right? There's so many issues. So I think blaming him is fine. I support that fully. In fact, my recent clip video I posted, I think one guy commented, I smell an Anwar lackey. I'm not an Anwar lackey. I think he's done a lot of mistakes. And I'm just saying that criticism must be both with context and it must be unbiased. That's my thing.
Right. Okay. Yep. All right. Well, thank you for that correction as well. But I would also say that, like, in this particular case of which you are speaking, so like the Nurul Izzah case, so then I guess my question would be, do we have enough context really to say that, well, she is capable or not capable of really being Prime Minister? Like, do we have that full picture, like full scale, full spectrum survey really of her abilities? And we say that, for example, like we are not too sure about like what she really aims or aspires for, then in that case, then can we then say that, for example, we know exactly what the Anwar or Madani government is aspiring for? Now, of course, like we may know in like certain areas, like for example, we have like the NETR, we also have the National Semiconductor Strategy. Yeah. We have a range of other things along the way. But like if I were to ask, right, a range of different people, like what they think, for example, of Anwar Ibrahim. And I did actually, like, to a range of people from like the Malaysian Mensa or like some friends kind of thing. Like I do like some surveys here and there as well to like kind of ask people, like, you know, like, what do you think kind of thing. And usually people, they seem to be like a little bit unsure. Like it was not really that way so much with like Tun Dr. Mahathir or with Najib. Like you could see, of course, like you mentioned, like you know, transforming the standard of living. Like that was the GTP type thing right there. With Anwar, of course, like, you know, if you watch the debat perdana between like Anwar and Najib, which by the way is like something that you should
it's very nice, very entertaining.
Should really like watch. You know, like he talks, for example, about, well, the need for forensic audit. Like it was a thing that he was just like hammering over and over and over again. That debate was about so like, what's the name of that company again? Sapura, yeah. Sapura Holdings. And like he was talking about how there's a need for a forensic audit. But now, like when it comes along, then it's become, we need to invest in these Bumiputra entrepreneurs. We need to save them type thing right there. And like if you were to actually look right at like the Malay internet kind of thing right there, so like you can see that a lot of people actually don't like Anwar. We can see that the vote share.
Yeah, Malays definitely. Yeah.
For sure, yeah. But like to what extent is that irrational? You know what I mean? Like, of course, like when you look at anything that happens in the world, you can break it down into, I mean, like any group of people in the world, you can break them down into, at least with respect to some sort of intended outcome, a group of people that are irrational, a group of people that are rational, a group of people who have more access to information, and so on, so forth right there. So on what basis would we say that every single person who dislikes Anwar is an irrational person? I think it's very easy to make that sort of essentializing conclusion and to thereby, you know, judge the person. But I would say that, like, you know, the same criticism that one might apply to Miss Nurul Izzah. Now, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with it, but I'm just saying that if we were to apply that criticism right there to Miss Nurul Izzah, like, you know, like, and say that, like, that's the problem, I would say that you could apply the same problem to the Prime Minister himself.
Yeah, definitely. Sure, and I just, I mean, just in closing, I completely agree with you, because I think that the problem with Prime Minister Anwar, and I mentioned this in the previous interview as well, is that I think the fact that he's not operating in a government where his party is not the majority is a problem. So I think we need to take that into consideration as well, because politics is a game. It's a game, right? So sometimes I think people can be a bit too idealistic and naive to say that, no, he must do this. No, he must do this tomorrow. You know, yes, he's made mistakes. We all agree. I'm not saying he's good, but I'm saying he's made mistakes. I don't even rank him as, I think for me, the number one Prime Minister we've had is always going to be Tun M. I think that he's the man. But I think Ahmad Badawi could have been another great Prime Minister if we gave him the time, if his party gave him the time. But I think with this, I think people just need to understand that you need to consider all areas of the discussion before we criticize so quickly. And it's almost knee-jerk, right? So the same thing with Nurul Izzah, I would say that I have no problem with the nepotism. I don't think nepotism should be considered as well, because like you, I agree that people like Lee Hsien Loong are all very good prime ministers, regardless of the fact that their father was the founder of Singapore. But I do think that, again, I'm just waiting to hear what's her plan. You know, who is she as a leader? What does she believe in? Does she believe in a moderate Malaysia? Does she believe in a theocratic Malaysia? Does she believe in high income, heavy industries? Does she believe in, you know, being more US friendly or being more China friendly?
For sure.
You know, those kind of things I want to know. But anyway, But again, Victor, I'm sorry, because we've reached now. I would like to have a 3-hour conversation with you. I would love to have you on again. I mean this. If we can do joint episodes as well, if you're open to it, where we can interview. I mean, we can just have discussions like this, and you know, it'll be nice. It's fun. It's like I miss having conversations on podcasts as opposed to always being the one asking the questions. Well, so thank you so much for having me, and like, it was really a pleasure. I really enjoyed this as well in a whole bunch of different ways. It was a very fun discussion in a lot of different ways, and if I were to just like add on something to what was mentioned earlier, so like I think that one point that you mentioned was very, very important, which is that, like, at least to a degree, we shouldn't just rely, right, on, like, say, other people. Like, maybe, I'm not sure if, like, it was you specifically who said this, but, like,
in Malaysia in general, I think that we have this tendency to like look at hero figures, like, oh, like this person will save us.
I think you
type
said
of thing.
that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I forgot what.
Not me, you.
Okay. Yeah. So like we have this tendency to like maybe look at heroes or seek out heroes, when in reality, like, we have to find something within ourselves to be able to like understand this world a lot more. But in many cases, right, you can't just like make a conclusion straight away, because like if we think about this particular party member like speaking out, right, like is that a showcase of their independent leadership, or is it that they are going against the party line? If somebody tries to be a hero, for example, and then like tries to be like excessively articulate, then are they like doing the will of the people, the will of the party, or are they maybe like, doing the wrong thing? It's an open question. But thank you so much for having me on this podcast. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Victor. And you know what? I would, as I said, I would love to have you on again. And and I'm seriously meaning that, because I think it's I like to have back and forths like this on politics, which I love and you love as well. So guys, that was Mr. Victor Tan. Finally, he made it on the podcast. I've been a big fan. Please follow him. Check out his content. This guy does amazing content. He's far better in this than I could ever be, because he's very engaging with his community. He also attends a lot of events. So this guy is really into politics, and really amazing to see what he's doing. So support him, join his channel, and you know what? I wish you all the best, Victor, and I hope to have you on the Good Show again, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
So guys, as always, that's Victor Tan. We'll see you all soon. We have many great interviews coming up. Please stay tuned for all of that. So if you guys have any comments, please share in the comment section. And as always, please like, share, subscribe. We'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.
All right. Ciao, Boost.